Let me ask you something. Are you getting everything out of your rent-to-own business? If you're not an A-Pro member, then the answer is probably no. Look, advocacy is A-Pro's bread and butter. This is why they were created and what they do best. But here's the thing. A-Pro membership is about way more than advocacy. A-Pro connects you to the movers and the shakers of the industry, people who've been there, done that, and they can help you do it even better. A-Pro's monthly webinars give you expert insights and actionable takeaways. It's like having a masterclass for your business every single month. Got questions about complex regulations or sticky situations? No problem. A-Pro's legal hotline gives you direct access to experts who have got the answers. That's a peace of mind that you can't put a price on. And let's not forget the resources, news, updates, and tools that keep you ahead of the curve. Scholarships for your team? Check. Disaster relief when you need it most? Double check. A-Pro is your ultimate support system in the rent-to-own world. So stop settling for less. With A-Pro, members get more. More support, more connections, and more success. Head over to rtohq.org and join the A-Pro family today. Because in this business, more isn't just better. It's essential. See you at the top with A-Pro. Hello and welcome to the RTO Show. I'm your host, Pete Chow. Today, we're talking rent-to-own with Tiger John Cleek Jr. And I'm going to tell you, there's no bigger personality at rent-to-own right now than Cleek. You have a following no matter where we go. And I knew that when I had you on, I got a local celebrity. But I did some homework. And John, it seems like everybody in town knows your name. How you doing today, John?
I'm doing great, Pete. Thanks for having me on.
So, the president of Cleeks Incorporated in Missouri. Now, you have 5 locations currently, correct?
Right. We have 5 locations in mid-Missouri.
So, I've got Boonville, Columbia, Marshall, Fulton, and Mexico. Is it Mexico? Is that right?
Yeah, Mexico, Missouri. Definitely not anything like, Mexico, the country. Yeah.
Awesome.
A little different from there.
So, there was so many things that I wanted to talk to you about, and we'll get to that. But first off, I just want to start with a little history of Cleeks because yours is a little bit different than some of the histories that I go over. Your history goes back, and correct me if I'm wrong, as far as I looked, it goes back to 1956, and that would make you a third-generation owner.
Yeah,
is that correct?
Right. The company started back in 1956 with my late grandfather, Clifton Elmo Cleek, and my late grandmother, Wilma Cleek. Actually, the company started, my grandfather worked out a deal with a gentleman named Mr. Wilson, who had a Wilson's Meat Market. And my grandfather had a rented wall at the back of the store, and it was actually Cleek's Appliance and Food Service. And my grandfather would sell a man of freezers and refrigerators. And Mr. Wilson, of course, would sell the meat. And that's how we got started as Cleek's Appliance and Food Service. And then in 1959, there was a location on Broadway Street here in Columbia, Missouri. You know, my grandfather bought that building and expanded the line into more appliances and electronics and things. You know, my dad started, of course, working for his dad at an early age. And, they were best friends and everything and worked together. And then, so they had that building up until 1973. There was an old grocery store about 2 blocks away. So anyway, they bought that building, the grocery store, much bigger location, about 6,000 or 7,000 square feet. And, back in the day, all anybody, then knew about was hard work and do whatever you have to do to survive and get things done. So, over the course of a weekend, I think my dad and some of his buddies, I'm sure, and my grandfather and a bunch of people literally moved the whole store, got the new store set up. And, 9 o'clock Monday morning, they were open for business.
Wow.
And we only had one store back then. And of course, back then, never really even heard of the rent-to-own business. So it was all retail back then. And then my grandfather, he was a promoter. I mean, I'm going to get this here in a second, so I didn't really know my grandfather too well, but he, they had a grand opening sale. And back then the head football coach at Missouri was a gentleman named Al Onofrio. And they had him down there. They had the Golden Girls. They had a band. They had, the mayor. It was a big event. And they had a grand opening sale, and, it just went over real well. And, but tragically, about 3 months after that event, my grandfather was coming back from a Missouri-Iowa State football game and quail hunting trip with a friend of his. And they were in a small airplane. They were coming back, and they got in bad weather, and they weren't instrument rated or anything. And on November 19th of 1973, my grandfather and the other gentleman were killed in a plane crash. And, my dad was 23 years old at the time and, broke, no money, had a wife, 2-year-old son, me, and they had an older sister and a younger sister, but, and his mother still alive. So, obviously that was a, tragic event. And, but my dad, never knew the word quit at all, except when he quit cigarettes. But yeah, he battled through it and he kept it going. And, we are where we are today because of my father and my grandfather. But really, my dad's the one that, and then luckily we were able to work together for 36 years till my dad passed away a couple of years ago.
Well, I am sorry to hear that. And, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was the legacy, the Cleek legacy. So I know that your grandfather had put a lot of solid roots in that foundation. And from going back and talking to different people and just kind of researching this podcast, I know that your father played a big role in creating that rent-to-own segment of Cleeks and kind of putting it on the map. So that was huge. As of right now, is it Trib or that APRO that has the Cleek, the Tiger Cleek Award?
That's APRO. Yeah, they created the RTO Tiger Award 3 years ago, and then my dad was the first recipient of it, and then I've presented the award the last 3 years. I guess it's been 4 years now. So Sandy Fry, Paul Davis, and Larry Carrico have been the other 3 recipients. And I present that award each year at the APRO convention.
I couldn't imagine that's got to be an honorable mention to just be able to put forward that award and how much it might mean to you to be able to do that. So Dad's really like, when it comes to the rent-to-own part of things, he's been able to kind of build that legacy and kind of build up Cleeks. How many stores were there when he stepped aside and kind of let you take over? Was it at 5 at that point?
Yeah, I mean, backing up just a little bit, if I can, my grandfather, he had 2 rules that he ran the company by, and we still live to those rules today. And we actually instituted a 3rd rule about 15 years ago. But my grandfather's first rule was never say anything you have to remember. So basically, if you always tell the truth, it always comes back to you. And then his second rule, which is actually our 3rd rule, but was get bigger, get better, or get out. And then our second rule's kind of the golden rule, just treat everyone the way you want to be treated. So, that's just how we kind of, run our lives, run our company, so that's kind of the values that we have. We're very, family oriented, of course. And, my father, again, took over the company at the age of 23. So that would have been in 1973. And it was all retail back then. And there were other guys, of course, that, started the rent-to-own industry and got involved in it. And I'm sure if my dad maybe had to do some things over again, he would have got into rent-to-own a lot sooner. But, in the mid-70s, started dabbling with it a little bit. But then we had a couple of, retail box stores that came to town and so forth, and just got to where, retail was pretty flat. Had to look for something else to do to make a living. So in 1987, my dad made the decision to get into rent to own, as the primary source of our business. And then he decided that, we need to expand to make this thing work. So, Columbia, Missouri, it's right in the middle of the state, in between Kansas City and St. Louis. But then he started kind of looking at our ADI, or area dominant influence, with, TV, and started looking at, he kind of drew these different circles around Columbia, and it pinpointed out, 9 total places that, ultimately we wanted to be. And in 1988, we opened up our first branch store in Fulton, Missouri, which is about 25 miles east of Columbia. And then in 1990, we opened up in Mexico, Missouri, which is about 20 miles north of Fulton. And then in 1995, we opened up a second Columbia store. And then we also opened up a store in Boonville, Missouri, which is about 20 miles west of Columbia. And then in 1998, we opened up Jeff City, Missouri, which is about 30 miles south of Columbia. 2000, we opened up in Moberly, Missouri, which is north of Columbia. And then we opened up in 2006. We actually opened 2 stores. We opened in Sedalia, Missouri, and Marshall, Missouri, which are both about an hour west of Columbia. So we actually got to one point up to 9 stores, and and we did that up until 2008. We did go through a little bit of a transition in our company for about 10 years. And then we got out of that part of the company and went back to being Cleeks again in September 10th of 2018. So back to, being a independent and running our own company and so forth. So, but we bought some stores, Pete. We sold some stores, merged some stores, and so forth. So, today we have 5 stores, and we'll probably be looking at some other markets down the road, but we've got plenty of growth opportunities within our 5 stores right now.
So what I hear is these are very healthy stores, and this is from an outside perspective. I haven't talked to you about it, but I hear that these 5 stores are healthy, and that there's a bit of a dominance inside the central part of Missouri, and that you do that for a particular reason. Is it because these are closer together, more home knit? You know the area geographically, or is it just one of those things where it just worked out that these were the ones that were picked out because they were the best of what you needed?
Yeah, I mean, these aren't huge markets as far as the population goes. I mean, Columbia, Missouri is the biggest market. We've got roughly 40,000 people in Columbia, but most of the other markets are anywhere from 8 to 13,000 people. And then there's a lot of good surrounding areas, within 10 to 30 miles of those stores. So, we're not really a big city company. I have no aspirations to go to a St. Louis or Kansas City or anything, and really no other states. That's not my thing at all. There's, some other markets that maybe we'd like to expand to at some point in time, but we've got a lot of growth to do within some of our existing stores, and that's what our focus is right now. And trying to, like everybody else probably right now, trying to recruit the best talent that we can and get them trained and move them up.
Absolutely. So when you're talking about these locations and they're in these smaller towns, in your opinion, in your professional opinion, you've been doing this a long time, your family is just born and bred into business. Do you see it better? Do you see rent to own faring better in some of these smaller markets versus some of these larger cities, some of these more urban areas? Do you think it's a little bit better away from there to be not so close to those areas where you can kind of feel the customer presence a little bit better? Or do you think maybe the future of rent to own is headed to the cities?
Let's take a quick break.
Hey everyone, it's Pete Chow here from the RTO Show podcast, and I want to tell you about a company that's making a real difference in the rent-to-own space, Wow Brands. I've seen firsthand how they approach marketing, and let me tell you, it's not just about ads. Wow Brands builds complete digital ecosystems designed specifically for the rent-to-own industry. Their e-commerce and lead generation strategies are built to bring in qualified leads. And did I mention that they are actively working with the rent-to-own industry while also being members of APRO and TRIB? Listen, these folks are passionate problem solvers. They don't just slap something together. They design, build, and scale the kind of digital retail tools your business needs and your customers actually want. So if you're serious about growing, reach out to Wow Brands at wowbrands.com. I trust them, and I think you will too.
Well, I think honestly, it's all just basically about your people for the most part. But if you've got a really great manager, you're going to make wherever you're at, it's probably going to work pretty well. In a lot of our markets, there's not a lot of other options as far as another retailer or another rent-to-own company. I mean, we only compete against another rent-to-own company in 2 of our markets. So in 3 of our markets, we don't even have another rent-to-own store. And then there's really not a whole lot of other retailers. There's maybe a mom and pop that's a local guy that's been there for 30 or 40 years or something. But as there's tons of ways to buy a sofa now. So we're certainly not the only option. And there's between, online and Amazon and Facebook Marketplace and wherever else you want to think of, there's a lot of different ways to acquire, what we do. So it's all about customer service. It's all about taking care of your customer, building up a relationship. And, I'd like to think we're pretty good at that most days. Do we, fall short sometimes? Sure, we do. But, when we make a mistake, we own up to it and we do our best to fix it. And that's just how we approach things. I always tell everybody, and I've learned this from my dad, if you're going to make an error, make an error in the customer's favor and just, do what you can to take care of the customer. We can always buy another sofa or buy another washer or whatever, but it's a lot harder to find another customer. So that's kind of our approach that we take and the way we try to do it.
Well, something that you said earlier was you think that you guys do it very well in being out there when it comes to having other people on the block, right? You've got different areas and different avenues that your customers can take to receive merchandise. These multitude of ways are not hidden, right? I mean, like you said, Amazon and different places where they know about it. And then the separation of customer interaction and having that customer relationship is paramount. And one of the things that I really noticed is that you have a very big foothold, a very big presence in those towns, in the center of Missouri. I mean, honestly, it's an omnipresence that you have all over the place. I've seen you on TV. I've seen you on different veritable social streaming platforms. I've seen you do a couple of different things. One of those is on TV. So you do have a TV presence. And in that TV presence, and I want to say this for everybody who hasn't seen what Cleek has done on the TV situation and what has been said about it. Actually, you just recently won an award for the rap video commercial that you put out recently. Is that not right?
Yeah, that's right. That's kind of a whole unique deal how that happened. There's a guy, he's a local hip hop artist here in Columbia. His name is Nick Rodriguez, but he goes by Nick Danger. And he's opened up for, like Nelly and Flo Rida and other acts like that. And I happened to be in, one of our stores and just stopped off at a Casey's to get a candy bar and a soda like I typically do. And there's this guy holding the door open, and he looked at me, and I kind of looked at him. He looked like kind of familiar, and he's like, "Hey, you're Tiger John Jr., aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, my name's Nick Danger." I'm like, "Oh, hey, Nick, yeah, how's it going? I've heard of you before and everything." And he's like, "Yeah, man, we ought to get together sometime. I've watched your ads and stuff, and I do a lot of he's a hip hop artist, but he also does jingles for businesses. I've also done some other things that you can YouTube it and look at if you want to for some entertainment purposes. But, I've done some charity events where Michael Jackson was one of my favorite entertainers of all time. So I've done this at the rent-own shows before, but, I do my Billie Jean routine or whatever. And, I got the glove and the jacket and all that stuff. And I did it in Costa Rica at the Trib Retreat a couple of years ago. I did a lip sync thing and did Billie Jean in front of a couple hundred people. That was pretty fun. But
yes.
So I was talking about that, and I showed him some of the videos, and he's like, "Oh yeah, man, we could probably work together and do some stuff." And then I'm at another local restaurant here in Columbia, and I run into him again. And so I'm thinking, okay, there's got to be a reason why I keep running into this guy. So we set up a meeting about this happened in like September of 2023. So we get together and we start talking and stuff, and he shows me some other ads that he's done for other businesses, and we work out an agreed price and what we're going to do and stuff. And then he had a professional audio guy that he works with, and we ended up going there about a couple weeks later, and we did all the audio. And this guy had some killer equipment. I mean, a professional studio and all kinds of stuff. And we put together all the rap ads, and we had a country ad too that we did. Nick hired a couple of local country artists. So 4 weeks later, after we meet, we had 3 rap ads done, and we had 1 country ad done, and that's kind of what we did last November. And I'd say for about 99% of everybody loved it. You're always going to get some people that you can't please everybody, or some people thought they were silly or whatever, but they definitely were attention getting, and not our typical just Cleek's ad. We run a promotion every single month. I do TV. I'm on 4 different stations. We do radio advertising. I'm on 4 different stations there. We do flyers. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. We're boosting Facebook posts.
You guys are everywhere.
We're promoters. I mean, we're pounding the message. I mean, if you haven't seen a Cleeks commercial in this area, you're probably living in a closet.
Well, I mean, you guys really have to understand what he's saying, because this is everywhere. If you're not in Missouri, you might not understand it. But if you are in the state of Missouri, anywhere close to any one of the Cleeks locations, you have to understand you will be bombarded with the message. I mean, as a matter of fact, right now, they just won the best commercial series through the Missouri Broadcasters Association, which is huge. So they take this rap video for rent to own, and they make the best video that you could possibly. It is very entertaining. And what they managed to do is educate, promote the brand, promote the product, promote the stores, promote Cleek through these videos, and they are spot on. I think, as a matter of fact, if I would say so myself, I think the Run DMC, the Adidas outfits in the Cleek colors is amazing, and it's great. But then not only that, all right, so we're getting these award-winning videos by reaching out to the community and bringing them in, but then the Omnipresence doesn't stop there. Something that you said earlier, there's also the Bowling for Autism, and this is something that you do every year?
Yeah, so I'll get to that here in just a second. But yeah, so let me first give a shout out to my man Kevin Silvers. I got with Kevin, and he tracked down these outfits for us, and bucket hats and so forth, and got them logoed up and embroidered and stuff. And so Kevin did a great job finding the outfits for us. And then the award, this was a much harder ad to do than the typical ones. Like, I sent you a couple of our other normal commercials. I mean, that takes me 30 minutes to do all the cuts for that, and then I'm done. But we probably shot video for 3 or 4 hours, and there was a lot of dancing and moving around and stuff.
Oh yeah, there's so much involved in those.
I mean, I'm 53 years old and 260 pounds and not exactly in the greatest of shape, so I mean, my ass was tired when we got done doing this, but we had a lot of fun with it and everything. But yeah, so KMIZ TV, a local station here in Columbia, their producers, a guy named Travis Buck and a gal named Linda Bott, they were the ones that filmed it and did the editing and so forth. And they put these ads, all 4 of them up. They put them all up for, these awards. And, these are, advertising awards in all different kinds of industries throughout the whole state. And over the weekend, they just had their convention down at Lake of the Ozarks. And, most of the ads that they ran, they maybe played for 5 or 7 seconds or something, but they played one of our rap ads, and they played the whole thing. And,
nice.
And it ended up winning, so it got for commercial series or something like that. That was the ad, and this, so it's the Missouri Broadcasters Association. So yeah, that was really cool. And as far as I know, at least within a state deal, and we've won some rental awards and stuff over the years in our industry. But as far as being recognized with an award like that, that was the first time. And then back to the something obviously more important and a lot more near and dear to my heart than that, though, is you brought up the Bowling for Autism. My wife, Heather, and I, we have 3 awesome kids, wonderful kids. Of course, they're not really kids anymore, but, they're all our kids, of course. But we have a 29-year-old son, Johnny, who's a doctor, and he's going to be a radiologist. And he's married to his beautiful wife, Renee. And then they've blessed us with 2 grandkids. We have a 4-year-old grandson, Rhett, and then about a 4-month grandson, Rex. And then our daughter, Mary, she got married a couple of years ago, and I got a wonderful son-in-law, Aiden, and they've got a beautiful son, Colby, who's about 10 months old. And then we got our youngest son, Thomas, who's 24 years old now, young man. But Thomas has mild autism, and, I give most all the credit to his development to my wife, Heather, who has a degree in early childhood development, and that's really where her degree paid off, was within, working with Thomas. But I got involved with an organization. The name of it now is Easter Seals Midwest. They're an autism organization here in Columbia, and they service like 49 counties and the state. And they provide services and parent trainings and so forth and stuff like that for clients. But so I got involved with that organization, was on the board for a while and so forth. But, they had run fundraisers in the past, and, they really honestly weren't very successful. They might make $400 or $500 doing something. So I came up with the idea of, having a bowling tournament. I started it 21 years ago.
Wow.
And I think the first year we did it, it raised like $7,000 or $8,000. So, back then, first year, that's a lot of money. That was obviously way better than anything they'd ever seen before. And then the next year, I think it grew to about 14 or 15,000, and it's progressed over the years. And we just finished it. We had it in April this last year, April's Autism Awareness Month. So we had it in April. We have a local bowling alley here in Columbia that has 32 lanes, and we sell this thing out every year. All the lanes are full. We usually have about 150 people or so at the event. We have an online auction. I have a lot of great sponsors that, we have lane sponsors that'll do like $250. We have other major sponsors that'll do anywhere from $500 all the way up to $5,000. We have a lot of great friends in the rental industry that have helped out with this event for a long time. A lot of our, of course, I kind of put the squeeze on our vendors to donate product for the auction, and they've been very generous about doing that. So our online auction generally makes about $7,000 or $8,000 itself.
Wow.
So this year's event, I believe, netted about $30,000, which is typically about what I'm doing about each year now. So I'm proud to say, in 21 years, I've helped raise, about $575,000 for this organization. It's now known as the Cleek Family Bowling for Autism Tournament. So they named the tournament after me. So that's nice.
That's great.
And so, yeah, I mean, bowling's something that, everybody can do pretty much. And, they have a lot of clients that come and bowl. And, I have usually some celebrities, some MU athletes that'll come and, take pictures with the kids and sign some autographs or whatever. And, it's a couple-hour event, makes about $30,000 a year, and it's just a lot of fun. And so I keep doing that every year.
I'm going to tell you, I'm sure that everybody involved in that is absolutely grateful that the Cleek family is actually putting this together, and something that they can do yearly to really help benefit those in need. I think that when you have an omnipresence like that, when you're on TV and when you're on radio, and when you're on social media, that also gives you a platform, right? I mean, that gives you a platform in the areas that you're in the communities you're in, to be able to do things like that. And I think it's an amazing thing that you do. Kudos to you and the Cleek business for putting that together, the family and everybody who adds to that. But then also, I know that being in the family business of rent to own and having gone through this for years, being generational, and I know that there's a lot of respect out there for your father and a lot of respect for what he's done. So the question I really want to ask you is, he's cast quite a big shadow Is part of what you're doing putting your footprint on this generation and saying, this is what I have to offer, and kind of solidifying, Dad was great. Absolutely. This is also something that I have to offer and I can do for my community and for my business.
Yeah, my dad was extremely involved in the, APRO and the rent-to-own industry, and he was one of the co-founders, along with a gentleman named John Thompson, but he was one of the co-founders back in 1987 of the Missouri Rental Dealers Association. And, of course, was on the board all the years and then served as president and so forth. But then, my dad, had a higher calling and got involved with APRO and served on the APRO board of directors for 14 years, served 2 years as president. And my dad's big passion for him was the state associations. So my dad founded or started up the state association coordination committees. He would travel at his own expense, from coast to coast to state associations that were looking to get, organized or reorganized or get started or whatever. And he did all of that. And, Ed Wynn would go with him sometimes and whatever. And, so that was a big passion for him. And then, the Missouri Rental Dealers Association, there's a lot of great state associations out there. I'd say 3 or 4 of them that I think are probably above, some of the other ones, but, but Missouri is certainly one of the top ones. I got involved, started on the board of directors, back in like 2001, did my time as a board member, served as vice president for like 4 years, and then stepped into the president role for MRDA. And I did that for about 10 years. And then I stepped aside for about 4 years and then kind of got back into it again last year. So I'm the president again of MRDA. And that's kind of right now, at least, where I'm kind of hanging my hat, so to speak, is trying to just make sure that Missouri is, and it's not just me. We have a great board of directors and we have some other former board members that have served. And then we also had an executive director, Ken Steiner. He retired a couple of years ago. And, but, our state association, honestly, has gone through a lot of transition in the last several years. Most notably, we've had, 2 great people pass away, unfortunately, with, my father, Tiger John, and then with Mark Windsor, passed away. So we've, lost a couple of people. And then we've had some other people that have, retired and sold their business with Dan Cole and Gary Romine and Chuck Kaluva. So, we've kind of, and then we had our, executive director retire. So we were in a little bit of a bind there, not exactly sure what we were going to do. Because one thing that, we started having a trade show probably 25, 30 years ago. It was just at the time the Missouri Rental Dealer Show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, anybody could come to it, but I mean, it was mainly just for Missouri dealers. And we'd have, 25, 30 booths, something like that. And, but then it, started growing and going, and we went to a different location and so forth. And then probably for about the last 14 or 15 years, we changed the concept to being the Heartland of America Regional Trade Show.
Which is huge, by the way. If anybody doesn't know about that, take a long listen to what he's talking about. That actually is one of the bigger shows of the year, right behind, I think, something that Trib does and something that APRO does. I think the Heartland show is right there with it.
Yeah, I mean, our show, and then, Ohio, Mike Tissett and all the dealers there do a great job with the Midwest Expo. So, I mean, their show, and I've been out there before to it, and it's awesome. They do an awesome job with that. It's more geared towards training and so forth, but we take maybe a little bit different approach. We have a bass tournament, we have a golf tournament, we also combine some training. We usually have a keynote speaker as well, and then we have a full-blown trade show for 5 hours. And, this year we had, 60 booths, I believe, or 63 booths at the
Wow.
show. So then, all the vendors showed up with product and offered show specials. And, it's not really advertised as a buying show per se. It's, not like Trib or APRO. And so we don't have a hot show or anything. But I mean, we sold, I think we did about $900,000 worth of purchases at that deal. So, I mean, for 5 hours and a regional show, it's, a pretty good deal. And then,
Oh yeah.
and anybody in the state, in the country can come to it. And, we just, like you to be part of your state association, but, everybody's welcome, and we have a lot of fun. Next year, I believe the dates are June 10th through the 12th. We had to make a little bit of an adjustment this year and have it at the end of April, beginning of May, because we got this Alaskan cruise that we're going on. Pretty excited about.
Woo-hoo.
Trib group. So that's going to be fun. So we had to make a little bit of an adjustment. But yeah, next year it's June 10th through the 12th. So if you want to get that on your calendar, but at some point in time, I'll, when the time is right, probably look to, run for the board for APRO or possibly Trib. I don't know that this year is the right year for me, but, I take a lot of passion in being the state president for Missouri. And, I don't really feel like I necessarily have to live up to everything that my father did. I probably, am more community oriented and do more in the community here in Columbia and some stuff than, what my father did back in the day. He was more involved with the industry, but, between Special Olympics, which is another organization that I've done a lot of work for and raised money for, and then, Easter Seals, and we've got our local high school that our kids went to, and I've raised money for the food bank here and, Boy Scouts and so forth. So, I mean, and the other thing we do in Missouri too that we're real proud of, and we get participation from all of our board members, but we also started doing community events. We do them in like five different parts of the state. So we'll typically we do like a food bank, or we'll do like the USO, help out the military. But we'll do, like a 2-hour service project, and then we'll also donate $1,000 to that organization, and we do that in 5 different cities. So we take some of our dollars that we get, and MRDA, and try to do some good to all of our different communities, and there are organizations that inevitably I'm sure a lot of our customers are utilizing, and maybe some of our employees too. I don't know, but so we're real big on community involvement.
I mean, it sounds like you have it completely worked out to where no matter what you're doing in the Midwest, if you're in Missouri, you cannot get around the name Cleek. It has to be on everybody's tongue. I mean, you're part of the FRDA, or excuse me, the MRDA. You're part of the Midwest group that puts on this. You're doing the autism. You're on every TV, every cell phone. You're on the main ways to be seen. You take care of 5 stores that are doing what they need to do to be successful. You're part of APRO. You've pretty much been everywhere. And that's the omnipresence that I wanted to talk about. It's just you have found a way to really be a part of everything, and not just there, but a part of it. Either you're leading the show or you're a part of the show in a way where everybody understands that you're an integral part of what's going on. And that's huge. That's huge. That's something that you've been able to cultivate and grow over the years. How important is that to you? Because it to me, it sounds extremely important, but how important is it to you to really have that omnipresence everywhere in the way that you're doing it now?
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely important, and probably backing up a little bit. A lot of this is also kind of starts with my grandfather. His name was Clifton Elmo, but he really just went by Elmo. And then back in 1962, we're huge Missouri Tiger fans and supporters and stuff. So, but my grandfather started the tradition, and again, he was known as Missouri Mo, but of predicting the football scores for the Tigers. It's a family tradition we've done since 1962.
Okay.
And he always predicts the score. He always predicted, of course, Missouri to win, no matter who we were playing. Now, back in the 60s, of course, I wasn't around, but back in the 60s, we were pretty much one of the winningest football programs around. We've never won a national title, I will say that, but we were winning a lot of games back then and so forth. So, but he would put a banner up in the window of our store, and it would say, Missouri Mo says it'll be, Missouri 24 over Nebraska 23 or something.
Oh, awesome.
So he did then. He was only going to do it like once. And then I guess the first time he did it, he almost got the score exactly right. And so all of his buddies were like, well, hey, Mo, what's the score going to be this week? So then he kept doing it again. And so it just kept going. And then he did that up until 1973 when he passed away tragically. And then and he nicknamed my dad Tiger. So he gave my dad the nickname Tiger. So that's where that came from. Of course, after the Missouri Tigers. But so my dad, is Tiger John. And so I think there was 1 week where there wasn't a prediction after my grandfather passed away. But then my dad, he said, well, let's keep this thing going. So he started predicting the scores as Tiger John. And then he would write an article in the local newspaper and just kind of an opinion column and stuff about, the game or the previous game, next game, whatever. And, so people would look forward to seeing that. And, then Missouri kind of went through a stretch where we weren't really overly successful in football. And so my dad got to be a lot better writer and a lot more creative, but still always predicted us to win, whoever we were playing,
True fans.
And then we finally, turned it around and, thanks to Gary Pinkel, and he kind of turned the program around and so forth. And then we had another coach after him. But then back in, 2021, my dad was always intending to do the scores with his dad, but then it just never quite worked out. And then, I kind of held off on it for a while because, one, I saw the work that my dad was doing, writing these. I mean, my dad put a lot of time into this. He would go over there and, meet with the head coach and go to some practices. And I mean, he's spending a day or two writing this article and figuring out what the score is going to be and all this stuff. And I'm sitting here thinking, I need to try to, figure out how to rent more TVs and more furniture. And I ain't really got time for this. Plus, at the time, we were only winning about 4, 5, 6 games a year. And I didn't really want to put myself on that yet. But nonetheless, then, I'm obviously a huge Tiger. And I'm Tiger John Jr., as you know. So, I mean, and I'm a huge fan, too. I'm bleed the black and gold, even as painful as it might be some days. But, when my dad, unfortunately, on June 4th of 2020, my dad was diagnosed with ALS. And we kind of kept it under wraps for a while. But then, we decided, my dad, again, he's Tiger John, and he ain't going to back down from nothing. And, he finally decided that he was going to use his celebrity status here locally to try to be the face of ALS and do good with it and try to make the best out of a bad situation. So another organization that we got involved with was the ALS Association, and then also MU Healthcare. They have an ALS clinic here in Columbia. So we started getting involved with that, started raising money for the ALS Association. And, when we first brought this out and everything, and we had I can't even tell you, phenomenal support from the rent-to-own industry. And I want to thank everybody that prayed for my dad and donated to the cause. They have an ALS walk. They have ALS walks all over the country, but they had a local ALS walk here in Columbia. And, the goal for the whole walk, the whole walk for all the different teams and stuff was like $40,000. And we called our team, Team Tiger, and we raised $85,000.
Oh.
Team Tiger did that first year.
Wow.
That was in 2021. Okay. And that was what we did the first year. And again, we had incredible support from everybody in the rental industry. But I guess backing up to the predictions for a second. So I made the decision that, I'm going to start doing the predictions with my dad. So we had a year of, and at this point in time, my dad was in a wheelchair and he had a handicap accessible van and so forth. So we did the predictions for a year, maybe even 2 years, but for sure for 1 year, we did them together. And we had a lot of fun with that, and we'd kind of go back and forth, who was closer and all that kind of stuff. And he'd, of course, give me a bunch of crap if he beat me and so forth. But still to this day, between my grandfather, my father, and myself, we've never gotten a score exactly right. So, because we're predicting both teams' scores, and it's
Right.
a little bit hard to do that. So, but
have you gotten halfway? Have you done 50%? Have you ever gotten half of it right?
oh yeah, I mean, we've been within 1 point before. I mean, we've been very close. And there was a couple times where, like, if we would have made an extra point or something, that my dad would have got it right, and the guy misses it or something. But so when you're sitting there in the stands, and see, our whole family's been season ticket holders, since I don't know 1960 or something, so forever. But you're sitting there and you're looking at the score and you're thinking, oh man, I think I got a chance on this one. And then something happens, or, somebody kicks a field goal and you really need a touchdown or whatever. And you're, thinking, damn it, but anyway,
Life
there
happens,
goes another
right?
game that we're not going to get it right.
Yeah.
But anyway, we had a great season this year. I will say Missouri Tigers were 11-2.
Nice.
We won the Cotton Bowl. We beat Ohio State. So sorry about that, Mike Tissett, but we did win. And Mike was nice enough to send me some pretty awesome ice cream from Ohio that I've eaten and enjoyed. So thank you. But, so we'll see what's going to happen now. But one thing that I was really proud to be able to get done, and it was one of the highlights of my father's life and everything, but my dad only missed 3 home football games since 1958. And
Wow.
even after his diagnosis, he went to the games, and we got him a handicap accessible, seat and everything and whatever. But one thing I was able to work out with the University of Missouri and the ALS clinic here at MU is I got my dad recognized on the field. And it was November 4th of 2021, and we were playing Florida.
Oh boy.
And so we were playing Florida, but our family went down on the field, and they lit up the scoreboard. We kind of did a pre-interview deal that they showed on the scoreboard. And
actually, I did see that. You guys have that listed on one of your social media posts where it's the huge sign on the side of the stadium, correct?
Yeah, that might have actually been, well, I'll get to that here in a second. That might have actually been my dad's celebration of life party that we had. But so we got my dad recognized on the field. Had Tiger John, lit up all on the scoreboard, all around the LED board. We raised a little bit of money for the ALS clinic, but the main thing was give my dad the recognition that he deserved.
Yeah, amazing.
And raising awareness for ALS, because I'm sure most everybody knows, but ALS is, a disease that's, fatal, attacks the nerve system, and there really is no cure for it. You just hope that you can slow the progression down. But eventually it gets you. And then, I guess everything happens for a reason, but on March 16th of 2022, my father passed away. Heather and I were actually on a vacation in Florida with some friends of ours, but when it happened, but got the call from my mother, and he went peacefully with my mom was by his side and everything at the hospital. But my dad was born on January 16th of 1950. His favorite number was 16. As I don't know, for superstitious reasons or whatever, but he always carried 16 cents in his left pocket.
No kidding.
And he was buried with 16 cents in his left pocket.
Wow. And
then his favorite Bible verse, one thing I'm very proud of my father for, and a lot of things, but But my dad became a very strong Christian in the last few years of his life, and got involved in a Bible study and started reading the Bible and listening to podcasts from his preacher and stuff. And but my dad's favorite Bible verse was John 3:16. Just things happen for a reason, but I guess there's a reason when my dad died on March 16th. So
Just a little insight. Your dad was a juggernaut in the industry. I mean, he was just such a large presence. And to this day, there is a lot of talk about what he brought to the table and what he did. That commemoration is just amazing. But just so you know, we actually had the same birthday. I didn't know that till you just mentioned that. My birthday is actually on January 16th as well.
oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it is nice to hear. But I mean, he just did so many things for the industry as well as just being a great human being. And, we are sad to hear that he's no longer with us. But I know for a fact that the Cleek family is carrying that torch as high and as long as humanly possible in any way. And that's part of the omnipresence that I was talking about. It seems like the family itself has just been a part of the community, not only the RTO community in every single way possible, but the actual community that you're in. And so the RTO industry knows the Cleeks from top to bottom. The community knows the Cleeks from top to bottom. And now it's really almost when you talk about Ed Wynn, who's the legal counsel for LayPro, and you're saying that your dad has been on almost every board possible, and now you're doing the same. I mean, it's just a great lesson to hear, going from one side to the other, from community visitations to growing stores grassroots and bringing them to the world through the social media presence, through the commercial presence, and doing such a great job of it. I mean, that's why there was no other better person to talk to about having this omnipresence than yourself. Now, a question that I do have is, what do you think about the current state of the economy and how that's going to affect rent to own? Right now, there's a lot of things going on. We are in a year where it seems like inflation is the highest it's been in a long time. It is an election year. There's a lot going on. How do you think this is going to affect us? And somebody who has their reaches out in the community, somebody who knows their area best, whether it be the Midwest, whether it be the Heartland, whether it be Shore to Shore or APRO, the RDAs, how are we going to be affected by what's going on in the economy right now, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it being an election year, and I don't want to really get into politics of this whole thing, but
yeah, I know, I agree.
That definitely creates a lot of anxiety and uncertainty, and especially with the most recent thing that just happened to former President Trump. But we'll see how that all shakes out, and we'll see what happens at the ballot box. But I think the inflation's just killing everybody. I mean, most of us, owners and stuff, I mean, we do pretty well and so forth. But I mean, I don't like paying $3.50, $4 a gallon for gas, or paying a lot more at the grocery store, more than anybody else does. And our employees are feeling the pinch. And even though we're all paying people way more money than we used to 5-10 years ago, everything costs a lot more money. So it's not really, you might be making $18-20 an hour or whatever it is, more than that, what have you. But, it just costs a lot more when you go to the grocery store. It costs a lot more when you fill up your car, clothes, everything's been affected by this. And, so in some ways, I think, that could bring more customers to us to look at rent to own as a viable option. And most of us offer anywhere from 90 days to 6 months, same as cash, or, some people do more than that. That's fine. But, so whatever it takes to attract a new customer, that's what all of us are going to do. Obviously, these high interest rates, that's not helping. It certainly ain't helping me because, unlike some other dealers that are out there, and kudos to them, but, I owe a little bit of money. And when I got to pay 8.5% on that money, that takes a pretty big bite out of my P&L statement, my expenses each month. So, I don't really like that because, hell, a year and a half, 2 years ago, it was 4%. So, it's putting squeeze on everybody. But, I'd say our customers and our employees are probably getting the biggest burden of that. So, Hopefully some things change, whoever gets elected, one way or the other, things need to change. And, but yeah, I mean, I still think it's going to come down to, promotions are one thing. I mean, I do, as you know, and we're talking about this whole podcast, we do tons of promotions. We're on every month. We're on every media you can think of. I'm not trying to sound like an egomaniac or anything. I mean, yeah, I got an ego, but I mean, I'm not. But when I go out, in town, I'm pretty well recognized. I mean, because people see me on TV. Okay, and do I think that makes me a celebrity? No, but probably some people look at it that way. But I'm a pretty down to earth guy. I like to have fun, and sometimes I've been known to maybe be the life of the party, sometimes to my detriment. But I'm not afraid to put myself out there and do some crazy things every now and then for entertainment purposes. But we yeah, we're out there, and but people say, I see your ads, I love your ad, I love that, whatever. At the end of the day, that's not why I'm doing advertising. I mean, I'm building up a brand. I mean, we have a great brand. I think Cleeks is a very well respected company in our area, throughout the industry. Again, are we perfect? No, but we run our business in an ethical manner. We do the best we can to take care of our customers, take care of our team members. We have 4 or 5 people in our company that work for us over 30 years. We have some other 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Some other, 5 to 10 years. Do we have turnover like everybody else does? Yes. Are we having trouble hiring people? Yes. So we have our challenges just like everybody else does. But, as far as, the Cleeks name and whatever, I'd like to think that overall it's positive, and between, all the community involvement, that my dad did, that I've carried forward and done, all of our industry involvement. We have nice looking stores. We got a lot of merchandise in those stores. So we're not, we're trying to do things the right way. Do we have a lot of room for improvement? Yes. But, we just recently remodeled one of our stores in Fulton, Missouri. It was honestly pretty tired looking, and had some holes in the. I was pretty embarrassed, honestly, with how the appliance section looked. I mean, there was holes in the flooring, and it just, it just wasn't the look I wanted. And it's only a 5,000 square foot store, so it's not a real big store, and it's only like 50 feet wide. And the way it was set up before, the office area and the counter and all that kind of came out. It was in the middle of the store, and it's like, we got to do something to change this up. So I got with our local contractor that's built some of our buildings before for us, and we came up with a plan, and we tore out the whole office area and tore it out completely and rebuilt it in the back right corner of the store. And then I got with Chris Hodges with IRE, and Chris does a lot of work for a lot of other companies throughout the industry, and he was phenomenal to work with. And we put in a whole new counter, we put in a TV wall, we put in a video game display, we put in a
nice
computer fixture, we put in a tire display. Our color scheme, is black, gold, and gray. Black and gold for Missouri Tigers, but so black, gold, and gray is kind of our color scheme. And we got our Cleeks logo on the.
I don't know if you know this, but our color scheme for the podcast is very, very close to that. It's actually very close to that. Yeah, we're spot on. I was actually, when I was looking at the website earlier, I said, those colors are very, very spot on to the show. They stand out very well. It sounds like you really did something great to this store.
Yeah. I mean, we're really proud. I mean, we put in LED lighting. We put in all new carpet squares. I ended up spending $90,000 on this thing, so it was only.
Oh wow!
Of course, it ended up being about $40,000 more than I wanted it to cost. But so then, but it's beautiful. It looks great. So, but. And then we're also working with Vox now. Daniel and Andrew Hyduke came in we toured all of our stores about a month ago. And we're going to be working with them on some signage and really just trying to spruce up things and create more POP, materials and so forth. And
Absolutely.
just honestly kind of try to get the store to where, the merchandise just kind of sells itself really. And we're, putting in sleep centers and all the stores and so forth. So we're, really trying to, we get a lot of our ideas. I got a lot of great friends in the business. And, one of the, just awesome things about this industry, I mean, obviously aside from my own family, but I mean, I look at everybody in the rent-own industry as, our family. And,
Yes.
Yeah, we might compete against each other in some markets and so forth. But I mean, we're all friends for the most part. I mean, I'm pretty friendly guy and like to think, I got a lot of good friends in the industry, and my wife's very friendly too and so forth. And, so we're my mom's still alive, and, of course my dad had a lot of great friends. So anyway, but I mean, how many industries do you know where you get together at a convention and you share ideas and, what you're doing and try to help each other out? I mean, it's not like you're ever going to see Coca-Cola and Pepsi get together and share ideas or anything. So, I mean, we're all in this thing together, yeah, we're all fighting for the same customer, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, whose manager and whose staff is, take care of the customer the best. And, obviously price has something to do with it, but, customers will pay more if they feel like they're getting treated right. And, I always believe that people like to do business with people that they like and, people that are taking care of, issues when they arise. So, but I love the rent-own industry, and we got some great friends in this business. We just recently got to go on the O'Rourke trip to Jamaica and had a great time there, and met some new friends, and really looking forward to this Alaskan cruise. And and kind of nice when you can go to some pretty cool places, and it's a business expense, of course, so that,
Oh, of course.
and
Of course it is. Well, part of the reasons that I love the rent-to-own business is because you said it earlier, it's about relationships, but it's not only just the relationships that you have with your customers. It's actually relationships that you build, like you said, with people who have tenureship in your business, 30 years and 20 years. Those are the people that we have business relationships with, but we also have relationship with, like you said, the guy next door, the people that, technically they would consider competition. These are the guys that we're talking about on having different, ideas and what are we doing for the industry today and how are things working for you and what's going on. And it's a relationship industry. It's almost not even just a relationship business, it's a relationship industry. Either it's the relationships that you have with the vendors like O'Rourke and doing the things that you are doing with them, whether it's the RDAs and you're doing things with them, whether it's the customers themselves, the most important ones, the relationship that we have with the customers and how we can serve them better, how we have our relationships with our community, and how we have our relationships with our employees, because it is a relationship business all the way around. Absolutely 100% relationship driven business. You can't get away from it even if you wanted to. And the truth is, when people think of Cleek's Home Furnishings, the rental and sales, they're omnipresent. They are everywhere that you want to be, including on the trip that I'm not going on. So I'm envious that I'm not getting to go on this trip this time. But next time I'm going to have to see if I can make it happen. I know that I'm going to be there next year. I do want to be there the June 10th to 12th. I plan on seeing you guys there and checking it out for the first time ever. I know that it's something that I've wanted to do last year, but we had just so many things going on back to back to back that I actually had to get back to my day job and make sure that everything was taken care of. But it's something that it's something that I plan on doing this year. Listen, guys, if you guys have any questions for John Cleek, please let us know. Hit us up on the show, and you can send us an email to pete@thertoshowpodcast.com. If you want to listen to this or anything else, if you're just sharing it, we do appreciate that. You can also look us up on the website at thertoshowpodcast.com, and you can see us on all types of social media, probably not as much as you can see Cleats if you're in Missouri, but you can see us on social media. Take a look us up. Hit us up on the DMs if you have any questions for John. John, we're so glad that you were able to take out a little bit of time to be on the show. show. I know that there's a lot of history that goes back with Cleeks, not only what you guys have done for the industry, but what you're doing for your community, what you're doing for your people. Just amazing stuff. Is there anything like you want to share last minute with all the listeners?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks, Pete, for having me on. It's been a lot of fun talking with you for the last hour. And, like I said, we're a small business. We're a family business. I was fortunate enough to work with my father for 36 years and learned everything from him, learned a lot from some other people in the business or people that have been in the business in the past. And again, we really enjoy what we do. We got a lot of great friends. We've made a good living at this. Yeah, am I trying to, make kind of my own statement or my own path that you kind of brought that up in the past? Yes. And I've really tried to, develop a culture within our company. And, we've been working on that the last couple of years. And so we got 4 elements to our company that are part of our culture: and family, image, winning, and fun. So we started, having company picnics. We've started having a holiday party, doing stuff like that. We have a store of the month contest now, and I kind of got one of those World Wrestling belts and stuff. And
The belts, yes.
we present that to the stores as kind of a fun thing. And then I've developed a mission statement for the company, which our mission statement is to make a positive impact in the communities we serve and to improve the quality of life for our customers and team members. We got our 3 rules of the company of never say anything you have to remember, treat everyone the way you want to be treated, get bigger, get better, get out. And then, our values are honesty, accountability, respect, integrity, and goal oriented. So, that's what we're about. That's our company, and, I love what I do. My son is a doctor. He's a radiologist.
Oh, wow.
My daughter's an occupational therapist. And my son's in the golf industry, and I'm an only child. Okay. So, and I'm 53 years old and I still love what I do, but, at some point in time, it's going to come to an end because there ain't nobody else. So, but, I'm not looking to get out of this thing anytime soon. Hell, I'm having too much fun and got too many cool trips to go on. And
there you go.
Also trying to, run a business and take care of our customers. Team members and stuff. So no, I mean, like I said, but that's just kind of where we're at right now, and we're just doing the best we can. And I kind of forgot something that's pretty important. We've been a TV advertiser for over 35 years, and back our company name was Cleek's Rent to Own. And at the time, I was about 20 years old or so, and I was watching my dad do a TV commercial. I wasn't in it, just my dad was doing it. And he's sitting there trying to think about the benefits of what we do in our business, and also trying to think of something that would rhyme with own. So he's sitting there just kind of messing around, and the camera guy's there and so forth. And my dad's thinking, hey, we don't need any deposit. Don't have to have any credit. Well, there's no need for a loan. So then my dad came up with this thing, and he just whipped it off like this. But he's like, at Cleek's, there's no deposit, no credit, no need for a loan. Cleek's, our family, serving your family since 1956. I think we're doing it right.
I think you are. Ladies and gentlemen, the trailblazer cutting his own way after the legacy of everything that Cleek's family has done, doing a great job in the Omnipresence, doing a great job in keeping his area together. And the truth is, local celebrity of Missouri, and now more states than that. I don't know if you know that, but everybody that I know knows your name. So I think it's a little bit more than local. But John, we really appreciate you having on the show. Thank you everybody for being here and listening to us today. And I will tell you as always, get your collections low to get your sales high. Have a great one.